In the darkest chapter of human history, where despair was rampant, one man chose to fight. But not just for survival, for his dignity. Born in Thessaloniki, Greece, in 1923, Salamo Arauch was a boxer before the war. Swift, powerful, and determined. But no one knew the true test of his strength would come under the shadow of one of history's most horrific places, Auschwitz. In 1943, Salamo and his family were taken to Auschwitz, where the brutal reality of the Holocaust awaited. But even here, amidst the horrors, Salamo's boxing skills would become his only chance to survive. In the depths of despair, the Nazis found a twisted use for Salamo's skills. They began to organize brutal boxing matches between Jewish prisoners, each fight a chance to survive. For each match Salamo won, he earned temporary freedom from labor. But the victories came at a cost. Every fight was a reminder of the brutality of the world around him. It wasn't just his fists that made him survive, it was his resilience. The will to hold on to his humanity in a place that tried to strip it away. With each fight, he wasn't just battling his opponents. He was fighting for his life, his family's memory, and his dignity. One fight stood above all others, the final match that would determine not just Salamo's survival, but his soul. With the odds stacked against him, he knew this was his moment to defy the odds. Salamo Arauch survived Auschwitz not just because of his fists, but because of his will to fight. He went on to live after the war, but the scars, physical and emotional, would stay with him forever. Salamo Arauch wasn't just a boxer. He was a symbol of resistance, of defiance against the unthinkable. In a place where humanity was lost, he found a way to survive.
Have you heard the story of the 10-year-old boy who revealed a horrific tragedy to the world? Have you heard the tale of the boy who delivered the strongest message of duty after the death of his brother? Have you heard the story of the child who became the greatest symbol of compassion, peace, and courage amidst the horrors of World War II? Hello friends, welcome to this new episode of WorldMeme. Today we are going to tell you the story from the time of the tragedy in Hiroshima and Nagasaki that became an inspiration for the global community. August 9, 1945. On this day, America dropped an atomic bomb named Fat Man on the city of Nagasaki in Japan. In this attack, thousands of people in Nagasaki lost their lives in just a few minutes. Amidst this incident, a photograph of a 10-year-old boy captured the world's attention. This was a 10-year-old boy, whose dead brother was tied to his back with a belt. The boy had come to bid farewell to his brother at the place where the victims of the atomic attack were being cremated. At the moment the boy was waiting to say goodbye to his brother, the photograph was captured by Joe O'Donnell, who was working for the United States Marine Corps at the time. What Joe O'Donnell felt upon seeing the boy was expressed in the following manner. I saw a boy about 10 years old walking by. He was carrying a baby on his back. In those days in Japan, we often saw children playing with their little brothers or sisters on their backs, but this boy was clearly different. I could see that he had come to this place for a serious reason. He was wearing no shoes. His face was hard. The little head was tipped back as if the baby were fast asleep. The boy stood there for 5 or 10 minutes. The men in white masks walked over to him and quietly began to take off the rope that was holding the baby. That is when I saw that the baby was already dead. The men held the body by the hands and feet and placed it on the fire. The boy stood there straight without moving, watching the flames. He was biting his lower lip so hard that it shone with blood. The flame burned low like the sun going down. The boy turned around and walked silently away. Joe O'Donnell made personal copies of his Nagasaki photographs and kept them hidden in a trunk until 1989, when he put together a traveling exhibit and a book. O'Donnell's Japan 1945, Images from the Trunk, was published in Japan in 1995 and read widely. In 1979, Yasutoshi Fukuhori, who had been near the bombing and was still haunted by trauma from the events, began a lifelong effort of collecting photographs of the immediate aftermath. When he saw the photograph of the boy, Fukuhori began an effort to determine the boy's identity. He ultimately failed, but the photograph was also seen by Masanori Muraoka. Muraoka believed that he recognized the boy as a childhood playmate, although he had forgotten or never knew the boy's name. He also believed that he had met the boy after the bombing, carrying his dead brother on his back and explaining, "My mother isn't here." Muraoka undertook his own investigation to determine the boy's identity. Muraoka found a few minor possible clues, but he also failed, although he kept an extensive notebook of his efforts. How did you find this story related to World War II? Please let us know. Also, to see similar stories related to world history, like, share, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon.
Fidel Castro, a name that echoes across the 20th century. Revolutionary leader, Cold War icon, and a man who became an obsession for the United States. Over the course of his life, Castro survived over 600 assassination attempts, a staggering record that cements his place in history. Born in 1926 in rural Cuba, Fidel Castro grew up to lead a revolution that toppled the US-backed dictator Fulgencio Batista in 1959. His rise marked the beginning of a socialist government just 90 miles from American shores. But with his revolutionary success came enemies. The United States saw Castro as a threat. Determined to remove him, the CIA launched Operation Mongoose, a covert campaign to destabilize his regime and, if possible, eliminate him. The attempts to kill Castro were nothing short of cinematic. Poisoned cigars, booby-trapped seashells, even a plan to make his beard fall out to discredit him. The creativity of these plots was matched only by their failure. They tried everything. Exploding cigars, poison pills, even a toxic wetsuit. It was as if they thought they could outwit fate. But every time they plotted, they underestimated one thing: the resolve of the Cuban people and the strength of our revolution. Beyond the bizarre plots, the U.S. also launched more direct efforts to overthrow Castro. The Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961 was a spectacular failure, solidifying Castro's image as a leader who could not be toppled. The imperialists thought they could invade our shores, that they could extinguish the flame of revolution with bullets and bombs. But they did not understand the power of a united Cuba. Castro's defiance reached its peak during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Partnering with the Soviet Union, he brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. Yet even in the face of immense pressure, he stood firm. We were ready to fight to the last man if it meant defending our sovereignty. The Cuban people will never kneel before an empire. Love him or hate him, Castro's ability to survive, politically and literally, is legendary. He outlasted 11 U.S. presidents, saw the collapse of the Soviet Union, and remained a symbol of resistance until his death in 2016. History will absolve me. I have fought not for personal glory but for the liberation of my people. That is the only legacy I care about. Fidel Castro was more than just a man. He was a revolutionary who defied one of the world's most powerful nations, leaving behind a legacy that continues to spark debate to this day. Subscribe for more stories that shape the world, and share this video to spark the conversation. In the shadow of the Cold War, the world's most powerful nations waged battles not just on the front lines but in the dark alleys of espionage and sabotage. This is the story of Operation Mongoose, a covert campaign to dismantle communism in the Americas, where ideals clashed and ethics were left behind. April 1961. The Bay of Pigs invasion had just ended in disaster. Fidel Castro's forces had triumphed, cementing his hold on Cuba and embarrassing the United States. For President John F. Kennedy, this failure was unacceptable. A new strategy was needed, one that would strike from the shadows.
We shall oppose any foe to ensure the survival and the success of liberty.
In November 1961, Operation Mongoose was born. Overseen by Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy and led by Edward Lansdale, a veteran of psychological warfare, the operation sought to cripple Castro's regime through sabotage, economic warfare, and assassination attempts.
The objective is to help Cubans overthrow the communist regime from within and establish a government more compatible with U.S. interests.
Mongoose operatives used unconventional and often ruthless tactics. Factories were bombed, sugar exports were sabotaged, and plans were made to poison Cuban officials. The CIA trained Cuban exiles in guerrilla warfare, promising to arm an uprising. Among the most infamous aspects of Operation Mongoose were the assassination attempts on Fidel Castro. From a poisoned cigar to an exploding seashell, the plans were as audacious as they were absurd. Yet Castro survived them all, mocking the CIA in public.
They cannot kill ideas with bombs or cigars.
As Operation Mongoose intensified, so did Soviet support for Cuba. In October 1962, the world teetered on the brink of nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis. While Operation Mongoose did not directly cause the crisis, its provocations escalated tensions to a breaking point.
The operation was a Cold War chess move, but the stakes were global annihilation.
By late 1962, Operation Mongoose had lost momentum. The Cuban Missile Crisis led to a tacit agreement between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. No more invasions of Cuba. With Kennedy's assassination in 1963, the operation faded into history. Operation Mongoose remains a cautionary tale of Cold War brinkmanship. It revealed the lengths nations would go to control the geopolitical chessboard, often ignoring the human cost.
Mongoose was a failure in execution, but it's a stark reminder of the dangers of covert operations and the ethical dilemmas they pose.
In the end, Operation Mongoose did not topple Castro or end communism in Cuba, but its shadow lingers in the annals of history, a symbol of a world divided and the hidden battles fought in the name of freedom.